These are the bonus chapters for those who want to get the full experience or a closer version of the full experience. I'll summarize them in the next recording that you have to watch. But, if you want to find what you missed in the lecture that was summarized, here's a little bit of background information that helps you understand the story. I'll give you a little bit of commentary, but not as much as I would if I was actually teaching these chapters. This chapter involves the feast. So Beowulf goes to a feast with King Hrothgar, and he gets his second major encounter. His first encounter was with the Watchman. His second encounter is with the greatest warrior in Denmark, a guy named Unferth, who's probably 6'3", not 6'8", and not nearly as ripped as Beowulf. Who has his own background in history, and who Unferth was. If you were an Anglo-Saxon who was familiar with all the stories of northern Germanic legend, Unferth was not a good guy. Unferth was a second son, or a third son, I can't remember, of a great warrior. He inherited a really devastating sword called Hrunting, which was made by like an evil dwarf. And you know how like when they make a sword, ka-ching, 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 they like then dip it in that bucket of cold water. It's like, and hisses out and like that. Well, this sword apparently was tempered in a bucket of blood, and it's got magic properties. The worst of which is that whatever wounds are caused by it will never heal. So even if you just got like a little cut, you'd have that cut for the rest of your life. And so it's an absolutely devastating weapon. And most people are terrified of him. He is not a nice guy. He's a bully. He killed both of his brothers. So that makes him a lot like, I don't know, Cain, like that guy from the Bible who killed Abel. So he's a little connected to Grendel. And he has his status because nobody's willing to stand up to him. So he's kind of a bad dude. But he's the greatest warrior in Denmark, and he doesn't like Beowulf because here's Beowulf being like a big warrior, and also Beowulf's willing to stand up to Grendel, which Unferth is not. And so our second encounter between Beowulf and some other threat is actually at this feast where Beowulf has to encounter Unferth. So let me read the chapter to you, and we'll go from there. Unferth spoke, Ecglaf's son, who sat at Hrothgar's feet, spoke harshly and sharp, vexed by Beowulf's adventure, by their visitor's courage, and angry that anyone in Denmark or anywhere on earth had ever acquired glory and fame greater than his own. You're Beowulf, are you? The same boastful fool who fought a swimming match with Breca? Both of you daring and young and proud, exploring the deepest seas, risking your lives for no reason but the danger? All older and wiser heads warned you not to, but no one could check such pride. With Breca at your side, you swam along the sea path, your swift-moving hands pulling you over the ocean's face. Then winter churned through the water, the waves ran you as they willed, and you struggled 7 long nights to survive. And at the end, the victory was his, not yours. The sea carried him close to his home, to southern Norway, near the land of the Brondings, where he ruled and was loved, where his treasure was piled and his strength protected. His towns and his people, he'd promised to outswim you, Bronston's son, made that boast ring true. You've been lucky in your battles, Beowulf. But I think your luck may change if you challenge Grendel, staying a whole night through in this hall. Waiting where that fiercest of demons can find you. All right, so here's Unferth's challenge. He's like, oh yeah, Beowulf, I heard you had a swimming match with Breca and you lost. Now wait a second, as readers, you're like, wait, Beowulf has swimming powers. How can he lose a swimming match? That doesn't make any sense. Hold up, it's going to get explained. And he's also like, you don't really want to fight Grendel, do you? Here comes Beowulf's response. Beowulf answered Ecglaf's great son. Ah, Unferth, my friend, your face is hot with ale, and your tongue has tried to tell us about Breca's doings, but the truth is simple. No man swims in the sea as I can. No strength is a match for mine. As boys, Breca and I had boasted, we were both too young to know better, that we'd risk our lives far out at sea, and so we did. Each of us carried a naked sword, prepared for whales or the swift, sharp teeth and beaks of needlefish. He could never leave me behind, swim faster across the waves than I could, and I had chosen to remain close to his side. I remained near him for 5 long nights until a flood swept us apart. The frozen sea surged around me. It grew dark. The wind turned bitter, blowing from the north, and the waves were savage. Creatures who sleep deep in the sea were stirred into life, and the iron-hammered links of my mail shirt, these shining bits of metal woven across my breast, saved me from death. A monster seized me, drew me swiftly toward the bottom, swimming with its claws tight in my flesh. But fate let me find its heart with my sword, hack myself free. I fought that beast's last battle, left it floating lifeless in the sea. Other monsters crowded around me, continually attacking. I treated them politely, offering the edge of my razor-sharp sword. But the feast, I think, did not please them, filled their evil bellies with no banquet-rich food, thrashing there at the bottom of the sea. By morning, they decided to sleep on the shore, lying on their backs, their blood spilled out on the sand. Afterwards, sailors could cross that sea road and feel no fear. Nothing would stop their passing. Then God's bright beacon appeared in the east. The water lay still, and at last I could see the land, windswept cliffs, walls at the edge of the coast. Fate saves the living when they drive away death by themselves. Lucky or not, 9 was the number of sea-huge monsters I killed. What man anywhere under heaven's high arch has fought in such darkness, endured more misery, or been harder pressed? Yet I survived the sea, smashed the monster's hot jaws, swam home from my journey. The swift-flowing waters swept me along, and I landed on Finnish soil. I've heard no tales of you, Unferth, telling of such clashing terror, such contests in the night. Brecca's battles were never so bold. Neither he nor you can match me. And I mean no boast, have announced no more than I know to be true. And there's more. You murdered your brothers, your own close kin. Words and bright wit won't help your soul. You'll suffer hell's fires. Unferth forever tormented, Ecglaf's proud son. If your hands were as hard, your heart as fierce as you think it, no fool would dare to raid your hall, ruin Herat, and oppress its prince as Grendel has done. But he's learned that terror is his alone. No. Oh, you kill me. Discovered that he can come for your people with no fear of reprisal. He's found no fighting here, but only food, only delight. He murders as he likes, with no mercy, gorges and feasts on your flesh, and expects no trouble, no quarrel from the quiet Danes. Now the Geats will show him courage. Soon he can test his strength in battle, and when the sun comes up again, opening another bright day from the south, anyone in Denmark may enter this hall. That evil will be gone. All right, so Beowulf's response is pretty intense. He starts out being like, hey, Unferth, my friend, you drank too much, didn't you? You drunk. That's the only reason you're challenging me. It's like, you told me that I lost a swimming match to Brecca. All right, maybe that's technically true. I lost because I was saving his life from a bunch of sea monsters that I killed. You ever killed a sea monster? You ever killed any monster? What about Grendel? You know, you claim to be a big, tough guy, but I don't see you fighting Grendel. I'm here to fight Grendel. That makes me tougher than you already, you know? And then he's like, oh, and by the way, I did hear something about you. You never fought any great monsters, but you did kill your brothers, right? So, like, he straight up calls him out. Now, this puts Unferth in an interesting position. Unferth can either, and by the way, Unferth, we talked about names. Unferth, his name literally means unfaith or faithless. You know, I think that's untruth, you know, like it's essentially like that. But whatever the case, you know, Beowulf's like, you killed your brothers. And nobody has dared call Unferth out on this because Unferth has that sword and he's the greatest warrior in Denmark and he just killed them. And so Beowulf's just calling him out. He's like, yeah, you want to challenge that? Then you challenge me. We have a combat. You know, he leaves that insult sitting there and leaves the ball in Unferth's court to see if Unferth is brave enough to accept that challenge that he sort of lays down. Anyway, let's see. Hrothgar, gray-haired and brave, sat happily listening, the famous ring giver, sure at last that Grendel could be killed. He believed in Beowulf's bold strength and the firmness of his spirit. There was a sound of laughter and the cheerful clanking of cups and pleasant words. So Unferth backs down. He doesn't even deal with this exchange. So Unferth is a coward. Again, here's a guy who tries to intimidate Beowulf, who tries to make Beowulf look bad, and Beowulf just stands his ground and offers this guy, combat or whatever, but there is no reprisal. So, a bully comes for Beowulf. Beowulf's not scared, and then who gets scared? It's the guy who's trying to scare him in the first place. Let's see. Then Wealhtheow, Hrothgar's gold-ringed queen. Now, by the way, I didn't mention this earlier, but Hrothgar is married. He has these two really young sons. And his wife, Wealhtheow, he's like, I don't know, 70-something. And this girl's probably like 18 because of the way things were back then. Then Wealhtheow, Hrothgar's gold-ringed queen, greeted the warriors, a noble woman who knew what was right. She raised a flowing cup to Hrothgar first, holding it high for the lord of the Danes to drink, wishing him joy in that feast. The famous king drank with pleasure and blessed their banquet. Then Wealhtheow went from warrior to warrior, pouring a portion from the jeweled cup for each, till the bracelet-wearing queen had carried the mead cup among them, and it was Beowulf's turn to be served. She saluted the Geats' great prince, thanked God for answering her prayers, for allowing her hands the happy duty of offering mead to a hero who would help her afflicted people. He drank what she poured, Ecgtheow's brave son, then assured the Danish queen that his heart was firm and his hands ready. When we crossed the sea, my comrades and I already knew that all my purpose was this: to win the goodwill of your people or die in battle, pressed in Grendel's fierce grip. Let me live in greatness and courage, or here in this hall welcome my death. Wealhtheow was pleased with his words, his bright-tongued boasts. She'd carried them back to her lord, walked nobly across to his side. The feast went on, laughter and music, and the brave words of warriors celebrating their delight. Then Hrothgar rose, Halfdane's son, heavy with sleep. As soon as the sun had gone, he knew that Grendel would come to Heorot, would visit that hall when night had covered the earth with its net, and the shapes of the darkness moved black and silent. Through the world. Hrothgar's warriors rose with him. He went to Beowulf, embraced the Geats' brave prince, wished him well, and hoped that Heorot would be his to command. And then he declared, "No one strange to this land has ever been granted what I've given you. No one in all the years of my rule. Make this best of all mead halls yours, and then keep it free of evil. Fight with glory in your heart. Purge Heorot, and your ship will sail home with its treasure holds full." So he promises to pay Beowulf with treasure for what he's done, or will do. And that's the end of the feast scene, which brings us to chapter 10. It does say the feast ends, Beowulf and his men take the place of Hrothgar's followers and lie down to sleep in Heorot. So there's a little bit that they skip. Beowulf, however, is wakeful, eager to meet his enemy. We'll get to that. So that's your bonus chapter. Hope you enjoyed it. Yeah.